Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for letting me the opportunity to try to introduce you this facility that has been around already for almost 3.5 years.
Just a second, we cannot see your presentation from some
I'm
reason.
sharing it.
No, can. Oh, perfect.
Okay, we can see now. רגע, אבל אותו, את המצגת שלו.
Okay, everything okay?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so well, as I was saying, first of all, thank you very much for allowing me to introduce you to this facility that has been around already for 3.5 years almost, since its inception under the Innovfin program. I would like first of all to introduce you why this facility was created, and then I will just briefly speak about Innovfin, which is the framework in which this facility is inserted, which I hope is familiar for some of you. Then I would speak a little bit of what can be done under this envelope of financing. Put you a few examples of what we have currently in the portfolio. And then I would speak a little bit about the process for applying for the facility. And then, well, speak a little bit about the eligibility. I mean, what can be considered innovation under this envelope? What are the technologies that this envelope can support? And then a little bit about the geographical scope. So, if you don't mind, we will start. Okay, so first, the first question is why this energy demo project facility was created. Well, I think it's very obvious. If you go to your left on the slide, you will see that typically the innovation, and I'm not a technician, I'm learning a little bit with the work. You will see that you start with research, where, well, there is a lot of research around in the laboratories and so on and so forth. And there are a lot of grants. There should be grants to be targeted for this kind of activity. So that would not be a problem. Then innovators try to say, okay, I have a great idea. I have an invention that is great, super good. And then I'll try to demonstrate this as a small scale. Then they go there. Typically, there are some financiers around. And also, I would say a big chunk of the money comes from grants as well.
Sensor, sorry to interrupt you. Can you go closer to the microphone because it's really difficult to hear you?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. And then you go to I was just summarizing what are the typical steps for an innovation, right? And then you go and you say, okay, now I have all the means. I've tested this as a small scale. I have to demonstrate it at commercial scale. Let's see if it works. And then it comes the question, okay, where the money comes from and why? Because typical investments are much higher than before, for sure. And it's something that cannot be supported by grants purely. So the question comes where the money comes from. And that's why the European Commission identified the so-called valley of death between demonstration and commercialization. Basically, there was no funding around to fund this. So that's why this program was created, basically. I mean, was to try to unblock the bottleneck, which comes from commercialization, which comes when you try to commercialize an innovation. And it has been already proved at a certain stage, but nobody can finance it. So basically, the facility tries to finance innovative projects that are usually too risky to be supported by private sector or let's say commercial banks or other kind of investors, and tries to bridge basically this gap between demonstration and commercialization. And well, this is all about support the further rollout of the innovative low carbon energy technologies to the market. We'll speak later out of what can we what is understood to be a demonstration or a first of a kind, as it was called before. Okay. So then the envelope of energy demo project is between or is inside inserted in what is called the Innovfin program. okay? The Innovfin program is basically the framework that was developed by the European Commission to accelerate the access to finance for innovative entities in the Europe, okay? And basically, it's in Europe and associated countries. Sorry, because it's not Europe entirely. And basically, it's a joint risk and revenue sharing initiative, which was deemed or created between the EIB and the Commission. Basically, the funding, not only as other associated countries like Israel provide funding as well, is mainly or comes mainly from what is the Horizon 2020, which is the framework for research and innovation in the Commission. Basically, the Innovfin tries to cover the whole value of change of research and innovation, right? I mean, you will have different, let's say, buckets or compartments to support what is small and large research and innovation, which is different. For instance, in your left, you will have the early stage enterprise, and you have different programs. Then you have the SMEs program. In the middle, if you can see the presentation, you have what is the corporate facilities, which is lower risk. Then you have science, and then you have what is the thematic financing. In the thematic financing, the thematic products, you have EDP. You also have another program that maybe you have already heard about, which is the infectious disease program, which targets another market gap for infectious disease, basically, which follows a little bit the same logic in terms of how it works. And finally, we have a service, which is the Innovfin Advisory, that we can speak later on a little bit about that. So I mean, the EDP is inserted in this research and innovation framework or program, which is in. Well, basically, what can Innovfin do, or what are the in detail? What can be done with this instrument? But basically, that's the good thing of the instrument. I would say it's quite flexible, which means that it can be a funded or unfunded instrument, meaning sometimes we can provide warranties to other people to provide the funding, or we can provide funding directly to the companies or to the projects. And basically, we can take different kinds or kind of structure it in a different way. We can do senior debt, senior loan, or we can do quasi-equity. Well, quasi-equity doesn't mean that we can take any shares in the company, because it's something that is forbidden by the statutes of EIB. So typically, when we speak about quasi-equity, is that we structure the debt on a way where we are taking ultimately equity risk, but we don't have the shares, meaning we don't dilute the owners of the company. In terms of eligibility, and this is quite important, we can find up to 50% of the cost necessary for the successful demonstration and technology or service, manufacturing or business process. Basically, we can fund 50% of the project cost. However, when we speak about project cost, we have to be very careful, because this instrument is a little bit constraining in terms of eligibility, and mainly what can be eligible to put in this 50% is CapEx. I would say actual CapEx, capital expenditures into the project. On that, we can finance 50%, which basically gives us, when we go to the third line of what's the loan size that we can do. And it's approximately between 7.5 and the maximum of 75, meaning that if this is 50%, at least we need an investment that is above that. I know this can be a constraint factor sometimes, because there are a lot of good ideas around in the market which are smaller in terms of size. But unfortunately, we need a minimum critical size, as we have small resources available for this instrument. So typically, we ask for at least a 50 million investment in order that we can look at it. And then we can go longer.
Just a second. I just want to make sure, because it's really difficult to hear you. Okay. I will say just a second in Hebrew, okay? רק שימו לב פה, כי זה תכלס, ואחר כך השקפים האלה זה באמת איך שההלוואה הזאת עובדת. אנחנו מדברים על בין 15 ל-75 מיליון יורו, כאשר למי שלוקח את ההלוואה צריך להיות לפחות 50% יותר, זאת אומרת הלוואה, זאת אומרת מאצ'ינג, של לפחות מאצ'ינג או פיקדון או סוג של נזילות כלשהי, שהיא לפחות, אם אנחנו מדברים על מינימום, אז בין 15 ל-150, הם פונים למנעד רחב, אבל הפרויקטים צריכים להיות ב-TRLים יחסית גבוהים, ההלוואות הן די ארוכות, וכמובן שיש סוגים שונים של הלוואות, אני פשוט לא בטוחה שכולכם שמעו את זה, אני ככה חוזרת על הדברים שנאמרו בכללי. ועוד רגע בהמשך הוא גם ידבר על הפרוסס ואיך זה עובד שם, זה גם חשוב כדי שתיקחו בחשבון שהפרוסס הוא מול גוף אירופאי, והוא טיפה שונה מהגוף הישראלי, גם מבחינת הבירוקרטיה, מבחינת האסנס, דיוג'ילידנס וכאלה זה כמובן אותו דבר, אבל פרוצדורה היא אחרת, היא הרבה יותר ממוסדת ואיטית, וגם את זה צריך לקחת בחשבון שחושבים האם אנחנו רוצים לקחת חוב דרך הבנק האירופאי. Okay, sorry, go on, please.
Okay. I hope you have explained all the things that were not understandable, but basically, again, it's quite flexible. In terms of tenor, we can go up to 15 years, door to door. It depends a lot of what is the underlying project that we're financing. Then we can go a little bit on the next slide to see what are some examples of what have been done before under this instrument. And then, well, anything regarding covenants, security, and jurisdiction is transaction specific. Well, here we wanted to give you a little bit of a flavor of what has been done already into the transaction, into the facility. I apologize. We have different kinds of transactions. We have quite, I would say, big one CapEx intensive transactions, and then some other smaller. We have already covered 6 different technologies in our portfolio and targeting investments in 8 different countries. Unfortunately, up to now, all around Europe. Maybe after this presentation, hopefully we start having more things in Israel, which is an associated country for the facility. And I would just give you a little bit of examples of what have been done. You have on your left the WindFloat project, which is a floating offshore wind farm located in Portugal, which we have co-financed together with some grants provided by the EU and the sponsors, the promoters. Then we have also financed a PV manufacturing facility in Germany, which is the Oxford PV project that you have on your left as well. And we have also entered into the battery space by financing the Northvolt project, which is it's a quite advanced battery factory, which is being built in near Stockholm. Then we have also touched what will be marine energy sector through the financing of Wave Roller, which is an innovative company in Finland, which has some wave devices, and we have financed the implementation of the company in Finland and Portugal as well. And then we have also touched in the Eastern European side what would be Alcogen, which is it's a company that manufactures advanced fuel cells for any kind of energy devices, and Greenway, which is a smart energy company, which basically uses the electric vehicle chargers that they place around the cities in order to levelize the grid. So basically in this portfolio, you have a mix of different sectors and also different structures, as some of them are quasi-equity, and others are just senior loans. So again, the message that I would like to reinforce is that it's quite flexible.
Senso, because with out of time, yes, if you could just talk about the process, and then we'll have some questions, time to questions.
Sure, no problem. So basically the process is, you have summarized here in the slide. We typically start the official process once that we receive an eligibility questionnaire filling by the promoters. And then we internally assess the eligibility and ask the EC for confirmation, meaning the endorsement. I would say, or I would like to stress the fact that it's purely confidential. I mean, we always enter into non-disclosure agreements with the promoters. And basically, we try to minimize we share in a confidential basis the information with the commission, just what is extremely, or let's say exceptionally needed for assessing the eligibility. And then all the process is delegated in EIB, which means that we take care of the due diligence process and approval before we can sign the loans. However, on a timeline perspective, it typically takes at least 6 to 12 months And it starts all with the questionnaire that you fill it to us. There is a web page where you have this questionnaire. However, I would suggest that before you fill in, you get in touch with us, because sometimes it's not easy to fill in, and sometimes we can avoid any kind of misunderstanding when we are in the process. I don't know if I'm okay with timing, but maybe it's worth to speak about what can be deemed as innovative. Is that possible?
No, I think we can now have some particular questions that would be better to have the questions here from the different companies. So yeah.
Two questions. Same question as before. What are the ranges of the interest rate?
So what is the range of the interest rate, if it's possible to say?
No, unfortunately, I would wait for that question. This is a tailor-made instrument, so it depends on each and every loan. So we don't have an official table with the rates, and we cannot, of course, disclose what has been charged previously to our company. So unfortunately, until we don't have all the means and we have made our internal assessment, we cannot provide any kind of indicative rate.
Second question, could you cooperate with a local bank? Not just, as you mentioned, with grants from countries. I mean, could I get part of the loan from an Israeli bank and part of the European Investment Bank?
Sure, that's something that is feasible. I have to recognize that it's a very difficult case, because typically we find ourselves being the only actual funder to any project or company. But of course, we can cooperate with local banks and try to get an arrangement in terms of how we cooperate or how we coordinate as accreditors to a company. Definitely, yes.
Thank you.
יש עוד שאלות? Thank you for your time and for the knowledge. And I will finish here the Zoom, and we'll continue in Hebrew. So thank you.
Thank you.